Hello, everyone. Welcome back to one of our lovely little live streams here. We are located way down Africa here. This is Central Africa. This is going to be the part of Africa where you're going to have, all these absolutely lovely, deep mountains and jungles and all sorts of steamy goodness. I actually have real world weather turned on today. We just got a quick question who was asking where we're starting from. Today we are at Delta November Bravo. We're going direct Foxtrot Kilo Mike. So we've actually been down here before, believe it or not. So it's kind of neat to come visit it and just hit it from a slightly different perspective. So without further ado, let's get this sucker running. Running off external power right now. Might as well just go get it. One thing I appreciate about this aircraft, this is the PAC 750 by the way, is relatively easy to start. You basically turn on auto, you turn on ignition, hit the starter. Love it. All we have to do now is wait for NG to get up to 14. And we just go ahead, click, fuel on. That's it. That's how all aircraft should start. I think that's just awesome. Run off external power at the moment right now. I'm just kind of give it just a few moments to get all boosted up and get this thing rolling here. What a beautiful country. I'm actually flying with real world weather today. This is real time as well. And I can feel the air. Like right now where I live, it's relatively cold outside. It's probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Celsius, kind of a thing like that. But I believe our current temperature is 35 Celsius. So I can feel the sticky. It's just kind of one of those things. So let's go ahead and disconnect the ground power and go ahead and close this little hatch up. Like I said, kind of a unique aircraft as far as that goes. We'll flip on the generator. We already got the avionics all kind of preset and ready to go for us today. So everything's in pretty good shape as far as that goes. I'm not too stressed out. It's looking absolutely lovely here. Man, this is incredible. Imagine waking up to this in the morning and having absolutely no sound, but, kind of like the local trees and local wildlife kind of a thing. We were just so far away. One thing I appreciate right away, and I noticed this when I was getting started up here, is the size comparison between this aircraft and the TBM. I was really impressed to see that they're actually relatively the same size. And it's like, but this thing is just the stubbiest wing ever. So anyway, let's go ahead and get going. Why so early? I mix it around a little bit. I try to do it in the morning sometimes. I try to do it in the night sometimes. So that's why we so early, so to speak. All right. So one of the things I've learned recently, not recently, a little while ago, about a turboprop aircraft is you have this wonderful thing called the beta range, which I did a video on a little while ago. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, they didn't quite simulate it completely. So I should be able to release the parking brake right now. And if you actually look down on the throttle itself, you can see where it's got the little takeoff power, and you can actually see that, stick my head underneath here. This is kind of the idle. What you could actually do on this is in the real one, you can pull back and you can actually push forward while you're in the normal RPM stage. So I should say the ground idle stage. And what that would do is tweak the range of the propeller. You're basically twisting the propeller blades, and it would give you unbelievably precise control of your actual taxi speed here. So unfortunately, it's kind of conventional. I'm going to chop this guy up into pieces. Sorry, buddy. Whoa! I guess I almost got taken out there. So it's kind of a bummer that they only partially simulate that. So it's kind of one of those things. Hey, 5 p.m. I know, it depends. Where are you, right? Right now it's 11 in the morning for me on a Saturday. This is the first Saturday I've had off in 6 weeks, which is pretty incredible, if you ask me. It's just that it's been chaos. And unfortunately, we missed the last 2 live streams on account of the fact that we've had, like I said, it's just been unbelievable on my side of the things. We've had electrical problems, we've had appliance issues, we've had, health issues, we've had, family having to run around, kind of like, it has been crazy. And I finally get a chance to go ahead and do a little bit of flying virtually like this. I've been way down on all my views and stuff. It's, makes me crazy sometimes. But hey, life kind of gets you sometimes, so you kind of got to respect that. Oh yeah. Exactly. 5 minutes early. Oh, it's all right. I always start a little early so that I can get the airplane started. I don't actually take off until the advertised time, but it's just kind of one of those things. So I'm going to go ahead now. Just kind of make my way bouncing down the runway here. We're back taxiing here, and oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful part of the world. I think pretty much any part of the world is beautiful. I can think of a couple exceptions. One of these days we'll fly down in Antarctica, by the way, and it has to be brumbly airplanes. No turboprops or jets allowed on something like that. You got to be the original Larry Bird expeditions kind of a thing, which could be a lot of fun. I'm neglecting my piloting duties here, by the way. I should be tipping my controls in this direction so that I'm actually into that nasty wind there. Hey, how's it going? Oh, man, look at the size of it. Does not look like a Cessna 208 to me. Anybody else see what I mean? Not going to argue, I guess. I'm going to head down the runway. I love the fact that this runway, you can see this little section of dirt right here, where maybe a couple people got a little too low on their final approaches here. Not that we need a lot of runway for this thing, especially during landing. I could probably land this thing in, I don't know, 300-400 feet. It's really that tight. Takeoff, it does take a few moments here. So I'm just going to keep kind of bouncing down the hill here. And again, if we had that beta range, what I could do if I wanted to slow down is I could just do that just a teeny tiny bit, and that would be more than enough to slow us down. It's just like the more you know kind of a thing. It's like little piloting stuff that you don't get to see. Just kind of bounce along here. Like I mentioned a while ago, this aircraft was all the fault of somebody else, basically. They said he could do a video, and I'm like, oh, if I can get it for free. Yo. It's just kind of one of those situations that just kind of happened. But I'll give you some updates and stuff like that once we kind of get underway. Unfortunately, I have no working autopilots. One of the things that, unfortunately, it's a kind of a combination of the good folks at Working Title, plus the folks who set up the autopilot for this aircraft, they don't agree with each other. So I actually got to fly everything by hand today, and I have a feeling it's going to be relatively turbulent for us. So it should be kind of an interesting flight in that regard. All right, go ahead and tap that brake. We'll go ahead and spin ourselves around here. As I do that, I'm going to go ahead and pop up into flight idle here. I'm going to come out of the kind of ground RPM. Try to get out of everybody's way. Hey, how y'all doing? That looks pretty good to me. Turtle power. Love that. All right, go ahead and hold that brake down and go ahead and line ourselves up with the runway. Nice. So let me just go ahead and just do some quick little things here. We're going to go ahead and pop a notch of flaps in here. Engine condition, propeller looks good. That looks good. That looks good. Navigation looks good. Initial heading is going to be about 130. We got a big mountain right here, so nobody take a left turn. Well, you could take a left turn. I don't recommend it. Just double check everything. One of the things I do in the real world now is I actually go up here and I flip down the little visor so I don't go blind when I take the turn. But that's one of those experiences that you don't have to do with the flight sim. We got plenty of fuel for the flight, so I like that. Altimeter's been set. We're going to have to tweak this the whole flight. That looks pretty good. Give everybody the old good old windshield wiper, they call it. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. I like that. Nice. Oh, it's so delayed, but that's okay. All right, we're good to go. I'm looking at the clock. It's about 11 a.m. We're actually a little late on our departure here, but that's perfectly fine. So for this one, it's a turboprop, so it's pretty easy to get in the air. We're just going to go give it half throttle, let everything kind of stabilize. Then we're going to smoothly apply it all the way to full power. Because it is so hot outside, we're not going to be able to do takeoff power quite as aggressively as we normally do. If you actually look over on your right, you can see my ITT. You can see it flying up. It's already at 622 degrees. That's going to continue going up, and unfortunately for us, we're going to have to actually back the throttle out, which feels so scandalous in a turboprop aircraft, because it's like, really? Why would I have to pull the throttle back? Usually you have to push it forward as you climb. All right, let's get some altitude here. I'm not going to touch anything yet. Whoa! Hello, turbulence. I missed you. Turbulence is the only reality in all flights. All right, looks pretty good. We're just going to hold that 100 knots right there. I'm not going to do anything too aggressive just yet. Got 50, temperatures are good, no engine warning lights. I'm going to clean up the plane. We're going to go ahead and execute that right turn. Like I said, I'm going to take the gentle right here, only because there's a big scary mountain over there on my other side. No yaw damper. Oh, temperature. Warning. Told you. As you can see, as we got a little bit higher, the engine automatically spun up a little bit more power for us so that we could maintain the same horsepower. Unfortunately, it got hot. So we got to keep an eye on that while we're flying here. I'm also noticing my RPM. Whoever tuned my governor last accidentally, he needs to crank it with a screwdriver a little bit harder next time, because we're getting over our rated RPM with it. There we go. That's a little better. Nice. Got to put that on the gripes there. Whoa! Oh, love that turbulence. All right. So a junior version of me would see that lovely mountain on my right-hand side here and just aim at the middle and just go. The I fly in the real world kind of version of me says nope. If anything, you can kind of like nip this corner that I have right off my 12 o'clock here and kind of continue from there. But definitely would not try to get over that. It's quite a bit taller than us. One of the neat things about our flight here is when I was doing research trying to find a fun spot for us to fly, one of the reasons I chose this region is there's a fantastically large mountain right off the coast, just kind of in that direction, basically for us. And I was trying to find a way I could kind of like take off from there and like go around it, but it was like 12,000 feet, so it was never going to happen, kind of a thing like that. So it's just kind of funny in that regard. All right, nice and easy climb here. This thing's really easy. I gotta love turboprops. They're just so simple compared to a lot of other engine types. It's just, you're not going to worry about overheating. You don't have to worry about overcooling. It's just a matter of kind of thing. Yeah, it is a little bumpy. I love it. Again, these nice, hot, humid, steamy days over, this thick jungle. Oh, man, I love that stuff. Now, one of the things I noticed, and I'll point this out when I get a little bit closer here. Oh, man, the plane is not climbing. I'm at climb power, and it's just like, The air's just so thick. I love it. This time of year where I live, it's just nasty. One of the fun things is I actually had a flight a little while ago. And when we walked up to the airplane getting ready for takeoff, we had noticed the airplane was covered in water because of condensation. And we knew the local temperature was something like, it was like 5 or 6 Celsius. And it was like, oh. So then the discussion became, do we wash the plane off the best we can? Or do we assume all the water is going to come off on us on takeoff and everything will be fine? Now, I am not a betting person, so we actually got some towels, and we wiped the whole plane down and cleaned the plane in the process a little bit. But it was one of those things where it's scary. The possibility of ice is very, very real. All right, 3,000 feet is actually pretty comfortable. I'm actually going to line us up. Remember, I have no automatic pilot here, so I have to actually fly the plane today. Oh, boy. One of the things I've also learned in the real world from autopilots is they don't always work. In the flight sim, you push the button, it works. It gets you to the destination perfectly every time. In the real world, some days it works great. Other days, your altitude hold for some reason doesn't work. Other days, your heading hold for some reason just doesn't work. Maybe the GPSS isn't quite synchronized. I found them to be temperature dependent. Now, some days, like if it's really, really hot outside, there's no problem. Other days, when it's cold outside, all of a sudden you can't hold your altitude anymore. It is the most bizarre thing. Dude McDonald's commenting, you can only climb in the RV-14. I saw that on Flight Sim, actually. I'm not a big Vans fan, but because they're kit planes and they scare the crap out of me. But I would love to know how well that is. I have my eye on 2 pay-wear planes right now that I'm probably going to get with the birthday money I got a couple weeks ago. One, of course, is the Wilgo, which I'm sure a few of you, we've talked about that one in the past. And the other one, of course, was the, the Goliath, that bizarre 1919 airliner. Looks kind of like a heavy bomber that they try to put a train cabin in the bottom of. It's just quirkiest thing. I love stuff like that, though. All right, we're going to get ready for cruise here. 3,000 is feeling pretty comfortable for us here. I'm actually going to back the RPM. Very bizarre power settings on this, at least to me, because, again, I come from 25 and 26 were good enough. This thing's like 1870. Back up that RPM. And that should be pretty good right there. I think it'll be pretty solid. 1870, more than enough. Like I've commented a million times in the real world, when you set your power, it doesn't do that. You're sitting there going a little more, a little less, a little more, a little less. And then, for those of you who are using piston airplanes in the real world, you know how much fun it is to try to get the mixture correct. A little more, a little less. Don't look at it. Because if you keep staring at it and keep fitzing with it, you're never actually going to hit the stupid number that you're trying to achieve there. So, all right, let's start making our way there. Normally I'd tap auto, but like I said, we don't have auto right now, so I have to actually fly the plane. Oh, boy. Shame on me, shame on me. All right, let's see who we've got trailing along today. Lafarog, I imagine that's you. Sinesra, Toro Power, welcome back. Toro, welcome back. Elastic Sack, welcome back. Dude McDonald, welcome back. And Toro back there, welcome back as well. Fantastic. I'm going to do the best I can to hold this thing steady. We're definitely getting bounced around. One thing I found starting to work a little bit towards my instrument ticket, they call it, the instrument endorsement there, is that you just sometimes have to just let it do its thing. You can do the best you can to kind of fight the needles, but honestly, when you're instrument flying, it sucks the life out of you. You do 15 minutes of instrument flying, and every second is just the next second fighting the instrument. It's 1 second after. Okay, I just have to get to the next 10 seconds. I just have to get to the next 10 seconds. And it's almost like running a marathon when you're flying on instruments and you're getting ripped around really hard. It's intense. It's absolutely intense. This isn't bad at all because my head is fixed. It's not getting bounced around or anything like that. Yeah, no problem, man. Like I said, I try to do this whenever I get the chance, but my birth. So you're gonna love this, AB photos. I'm the 4th. The wifey is the 16th. Our best dad is the 22nd. It's we're all February. It's just kind of one of those fun little things. And it's all my students, the ones that I'm very close with at school, all happen to have February birthdays to this. Is it the same with altitude? Dude, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. For me, in the real world, planes stay at their altitude better than they do in the flight sim. It just does. Once I set the trim, especially I fly a Mooney a lot now. That is my plane. It's a Mooney 20, and it's a very stiff plane, and the controls are very responsive, which I think all climate control planes really should be. But I'm not chasing altitude more than I'm chasing its constant tendency to want to pull left or pull right a little bit or something like that, or your heading starts hunting and stuff like that. That's constantly what it is. One of the things a flight sim teaches you that I think the real world doesn't teach you as well is the whole concept of, basically maintaining your instrument scan and trying to keep everything nice and steady. If you get good at that in the flight sim, when you move to the real world, you will be legitimately surprised how fast you pick up that instrument kind of scan and kind of knowing when to fight it and when to kind of not. But in the real world, of course, you have the physical factors, which are very real. One of my favorite things that happened to me was we were doing attitude training, where basically they put your plane at a stupid angle and say, fix it. And I've never had such spatial disorientation in my life. I was just sitting there one moment, next thing you know, I'm looking at the front windshield like this, and I swear to you, this is what it felt like I was doing. Even though I was looking at the front windshield. It was intense. It was terrifying. Like I said, it's really scary at night, too, because that's a very real sensation. All right, doing pretty well. Not bad. Like I said, this is a pretty cool one. All right, kind of come to swing to the right here. So first challenge that we're going to have on our flight here is if you look off at my 12 o'clock here, one of the fun things the wifey and I do now is we play the Can You Spot the Traffic game. So everywhere we drive, we got traffic at 3 o'clock high, traffic at 11:30, or you have to play a really fun one. Oh, we got traffic at 5 o'clock. It's like, what? Just kind of a fun game to play. But one of the things is that you just to build up that awareness around you, even when you're driving your car around. This is something that, as I've flown more and more, I am terrified of other planes, almost more so than I am terrified of the ground, because I know where the ground is. I don't always know where the other planes are. Folks in those little kit planes flying out of those small little kind of backyard runways, you got to watch out for those guys. Those guys can just literally come out of nowhere on you, and that could be really, really tricky. Had a very interesting incident with an Ercoup, actually. It was coming into land, and it was clearly somebody who hadn't flown in a while, but probably still had their license from like a couple. I don't even know, but it was just one of those experiences where it was surreal. Like it was almost like if you let somebody, like I think of like a child kind of like fly. That's the best way to describe it. Having no idea how to communicate on the radio, not being able to safely describe things, and they basically got torn a new one by air traffic control. And it was amazing because we're all sitting there at the runway like terrified. Nobody wanted to move because they weren't sure what the person was going to do or if they could do it safely. And the part I found most interesting about that incident was that the person landed the plane perfectly, like effortlessly. And I'm like, then who's on the radio? I could not figure that one out. Could not. All right, keep going. Another fun thing, by the way, for those instrument folks, is that little attitude indicator in the middle is your absolute best friend when you're in instrument mode. It really does help if you figure out the exact amount of dot you have to keep it on the horizon in order to keep it level. Then you almost don't have to look at those other instruments. It really makes a difference. There we go. I'm going to come to my left. Man, the wind is all over the place today. I think it's good 30-40. Do you have mobile ADS-B? Yes, I do AB photos. So for those of you who are not sure about ADS-B, in the US at least, everybody carries a little transponder that basically talks to everybody and tells you where you are and what your altitude is. So one of the things I have, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, it does not pick up other traffic, I can actually press the traffic button on this and it would show me where everybody is behind me. So what I do on my left leg in the real world is I have a little, basically it's an iPad mini, and it has ForeFlight on it. It just tells me where the traffic is. And I actually have two separate ADS-B receivers. You have the one in the GPS, and then you have the one that I actually stick to the back window so that I always have a backup in the event that one of them fails. Problem with traffic, though, is I can't tell you how many times, like when I was flying back in January, we were going to visit down south, and we got a call all of a sudden saying there's traffic at your 9 o'clock and aggressively maneuvering. And I just remember looking out the window like this, and keep in mind, traffic in the real world, like, let me give you an idea how hard this would be to see. Like, see this one pixel right here? That's what traffic in the real world looks like once it gets past about 1.5 miles from you. So I look out the left wing, and I see a black pixel literally going up, doing flips, rotating like this, going like this, doing one of those and those. I'm sitting there going, wow, okay. So I'm visible on flight radar. Yes, I'm always visible on flight radar. As a matter of fact, I can tell you somebody's got my plane right now. So you can go visit with it. One of the fun things with the plane that I fly, though, is that when I do fly, it's if I don't get a ADS transponder code, I don't show up because I'm set to private. So it's one of those things where the other planes that I fly, you can see anytime, but it's not always me flying. Just kind of fun. So you can watch my entertaining little insanity there. That plane is booking. Holy smokes. I love how everybody's getting bounced around in formation here. It is so satisfying to watch everybody getting kind of hit around. That's just so much more, I don't know, I just love that. It feels real. It really does feel much, much more real. And I swear my flaps are down on this thing, but I'm doing 150 knots, so I'm moving. Yeah, no, I actually have to change the springs in my controller right now. Oh, one of the comments. Since when are we flying over Tiberium? I mean, you see these big bright green patches? It's like, oh, somebody's accidentally left a little bit of Command and Conquer sitting around here. Command and Conquer, I remember playing that. This is going to sound crazy back in elementary school, like the original Command and Conquer. There's also Dune 2, but look at that. Look at that Tiberium patch. That's a good one. If you're not careful, though, the Nod's going to show up and try to take it, kind of a thing. All right, so altitude does matter here. So right now, unfortunately, I don't have that fancy G1000, which is one of the things I really like about this plane. I love the fact that it just switches. Like, it's just a button. It's tactile. I go click, and it does things. We don't get that in some of the other more modern touchy screen aircraft. And again, it's all wonderful, and it all works great. But it's, I don't know, I like a kind of a thing like that. That's just fun. All right, so our first obstacle is that guy right there. So believe it or not, those mountains are a lot taller than they look. Now, it's one of the things I'd learned when I was doing my initial research, trying to figure out, what altitude should I do this? I really wanted to go kind of low, like right over the jungle, but then I kept running into 6,000-foot mountains, and it was like, oh, well, that's a problem. Whoa. Oh, that's some turbulence right there. I feel like I'm like sped up or something, but it's just bouncy. There we go. That looks pretty good to me. That's another thing you learn that you do in the real world that you didn't notice that you did. But in the real world, you have your feet resting on the rudder pedals, and they're like that. And you don't realize it until about halfway through the flight when you let go of the rudder pedal and the whole nose. See how the nose just shifted to the left? That's exactly what happens in the real plane in the real world. Is you just realize, oop, I didn't realize I was putting pressure on that the entire time. So, of course, that thing goes boing and jumps on you. And you're like, ah, kind of a thing. It's just little stuff that it builds up, and you start to notice it. Man, that's a tall mountain. That's incredible. Whoa. A little bit of nose down here. Whenever you move near mountains, I tend to get that weird little kind of mountain wave effect that can be very interesting. Where I live, the real mountains are up in New York. I don't have big stuff around me, but there are some pretty funky winds between mountains. Are my gears down? I don't have a choice. They stay down. I actually like aircraft with fixed landing gear. It's not so much that it's like, oh yeah, you got to deal with the drag penalty. But in the real world, you know, I fly aircraft that are retractables now. And I can't tell you how many times I've come into land and I put the landing gear lever down. On a Mooney, there's three things you check. You make sure the gear down, you pull out the ram air, and also on the floor is this little green box that tells you whether or not the gear's down. But when you look out the wing, you can't see through the wing, so you don't know if the wheels are physically down. So even though you've checked everything, there's still a distinct possibility that, oh my God, we've messed up and we're going to crash there. I'm going to go ahead and apply some power here. We got to get over this. There we go. There we go. Just power over it here. We want to take advantage of the power we have at this time. And we're overheating. Overheat. Warning. In the real world, it's much easier to move the throttle a millimeter. And simulator, all simulator throttles are just too tight. And yes, I know I can take a wrench to it and I can loosen it. But then it gets, and it's all wobbly and all over the place, which is also very not desirable. Like how we did that at 140 knots. Oh, are we going to get clear? Yeah, we're going to get clear. Nice. See how the wing started to drop there? That's terrifying. All right, so believe it or not, the one in front of us is also quite tall here. So I'm going to give it just a tiny bit more torque here. Now, a fun thing on a turboprop, you can increase the PSI, which is our torque rating, without touching the RPM handle, and you end up with about the same amount of thrusts. It's actually kind of neat how that works. Whereas when you're dealing with a piston aircraft, if you reduce the RPM, you're going to lose power because you just, torque times speed, basically. I'm not going to crash, don't worry. There we go. That's not too bad right there. I'm just going to get a little more altitude. These are very tall mountains compared to where I live right here. I mean, like I said, love to do the NOE stuff here, but I don't think that's going to be safe. Oh, Lime Slide VR, welcome back. I missed you earlier. Beach 36. Yeah, Bonanza would be actually pretty fun. One of the items on my bucket list in the real world is to fly an actual Bonanza. There's several at the local airport that I like. One of these days, somebody will cut me some slack and let me take it for a spin. I'm just curious to see if they're all what they're cracked up to be. Let's go ahead and back the power up just a tiny bit. This thing is a pretty expensive airplane. I don't want to risk it. There we go. That should be enough altitude underneath me to be able to clear these. Obviously, in the real world, you're going to be dealing with that really, really pesky ridge lift that you're going to get. So what will actually happen is, depending on the direction of the wind, you get this crazy turbulent zone right there. And if you hit it at basically a 90-degree angle, you're asking for it. Whoa! Love that. I like how the air is much more dynamic than it used to be in the earlier flight sims. In FSX, it was just kind of what it was. Now you actually have like a little bit of weirdness that is random, but it's just the right amount of random. And can you imagine like sitting on the top of that thing? That's amazing. Looking for the little like mountain streams and stuff. Oh man, I love this part of the world. One of these days I shall visit Africa. Problem is where? That's the part I haven't figured out yet. Oh, that is so nice down there. This is just wild. The problem is if we go down and we crash, they're not going to find us for... They won't find us. The jungle will claim us. Whoa. And all sorts of bounced around here. I would adjust my elevator trim, but I don't think it would help very much. This is kind of cool here because you can see a stream. You know, where the stream, there's transportation. There's like, look at all the... Uh-oh, we're being followed. Look at the shadows. But you can see there's this neat little village down here. And it just like, wow. How do you get your groceries? And yes, I know the answer to that question. But still, it's incredible. Like, you know, all this kind of stuff just in the middle, so far away. You think about the distance we've already flown here. You know, there are no airports. Like I said, if we have to go down... I guess I'd try to land here and just stick it into a tree somewhere. I was actually reading a very fun article about crashing airplanes into trees. I know it sounds like something you don't want to know or you don't want to do, but believe it or not, there's some pretty good advice in the article if you ever have to land in a tree. And it's one of those, these are things I should know about a pilot just in case something breaks on me. The key element is, remember, a front-on collision is better than a side-on collision. And you want to suck as much energy out of the collision as possible. So you have these lovely wings. You don't need those wings. And they were actually talking about the factors in piloting which cause the accidents to get more dangerous. And the first one is refusing that you're in an accident. The second one is caring about the plane too much. The plane, it doesn't matter on the plane. The plane failed you. You know what I mean? Or you didn't put enough gas in it, in which case, shame on you. But still, the plane's not going to help you out anymore. And it's those kind of effects. And the other one is decision, basically paralysis, where you're trying to analyze everything rather than pick an immediate course of action and go. And I think a lot of that just comes down to training. You know, if you already know the exact instant response of how I should probably deal with an emergency, I don't have to think about it. I can just act rather than stressing out and then deal with the other consequences, like, you know, communicating I'm about to crash or something along those lines. But there's a pretty fun little animation of flying basically through a bunch of trees and trying to catch the trees with the wings, but not too steep because you don't want to go low on the tree trunk, because if you do that, then the flexibility of the tree isn't there and it's like hitting a rock. But if you go too high in the tree trunk, then it only hits your bottom half and it catches the propeller, which pulls your nose down. There's like a whole science to crashing into trees. It's just kind of one of those, I wonder what version of Flight Sim will get that simulation. All right. Now we're just about to pass into this very, very large valley here, if I recall correctly. How are my hours coming along? Oh, I'm getting there. I'm in the hundreds now, which is actually really, really cool, AB. It's weird. The hours just build up. You know, you just do a bunch of flights on a bunch of weekends. The next thing you know, you've entered into the danger zone. If you're not that danger zone, but there's a very cool book basically called Danger Zone, and it talks about that point in pilots' careers when they cross out of training mode and they move into let's fly mode and they start getting, I guess you want to call it sloppy. And it's basically 125 hours and up. So I am into that range now. So it's I understand completely why people crash at 125 hours or 150 hours or 200 hours. And it's because you cross that line where things they're not novel anymore, so you get a little more relaxed and you're like, oh yeah, whatever, I'm just going to get there and go kind of a thing. But that's the exact attitude that gets you killed. And it's one of those things where, yeah, you've seen some things, you've had to fly some funky approaches, maybe you've had your first real emergencies. By the way, look at how high up that mountain was. I was not joking. And you've dealt with those things and you're fine, you're feeling confident, but then you get too confident. And you get out of that sort of training, always terrified mode. You're like, oh, this worked for me 100 times in the past. It'll be fine. I'll just do it again. You know, when you're pushing almost 1,000 real-world landings, it's like, yeah, nothing's got me now. But that's, like I said, where you get kind of tricky. And what a lot of people will do is they continually train out past that range to basically get them out of that sort of danger crash zone so they get to that super competency. Or they go get a commercial license or something like that. All right, I'm all over as far as altitude goes, but I want to give myself a little bit of wiggly room. Look at this cool valley. Man, imagine how thick the trees are in the real world with all the little birds flying out of it and everything. That's got to be amazing. All right, so this is another mistake I made in flight planning here. It does. It does. And one of the things that, like, for the videos, I did on my videos this morning for next week, because I try to get them done when I can. But one of the things I did is I had to go around in a video because it was too dangerous. You know, for flight sim, whatever, I'll just hit pause or something like that. That's the complacency that kills you. You know, it's always trying something new. Like, another thing that I've started doing is I want to go flying as I try to practice some random maneuver if I have somebody on board who doesn't mind me doing it. So, like, going back and doing slow flight and doing stalls. And one of the fun things with slow flight is, just from the side here, is, you know, when we're flying it in the real world, you can get the plane really slow. Like, they say, well, you're supposed to be X percentage above, you know, like, whatever your stall speed is. I will sit on the stall alarm at stall speed and just sort of hover. And you're looking at your ground speed. Your ground speed is like 18 knots or something like that because of like a headwind. And it's like, yeah, we did do this in practice, but it's kind of cool to see that you can do it. And then you get this one gust and you hear beep, and the whole plane starts half spinning. And you're like, well, that was dangerous. And just kind of one of those sort of things. My next goal, as far as my own piloting goes, is instrument, as I probably kind of hinted at just a little bit. The instruments, it's been interesting so far. I've only done enough to get myself in enough trouble, kind of a thing like that. And the nice thing is I've done all those videos and instrument stuff in the past. I wasn't far off. There's a lot of little things in instrument flying that I didn't take into account. No, I did not see the balloon. I'm just looking out the window here. It looks pretty good. It's too bad these wings don't flex a little bit. So in the real world, any plane that I've ever flown, they kind of go just a little flex. It's just a kind of one of those things where it just kind of makes a little kind of a thing when you hit just the right bump. But again, I'm not too worried about that. I'm swinging to my left. It's okay. So believe it or not, there's a major airport now coming right up here. I believe it is over. Yeah, that is right there. You can see it right off our right wing there. Whoa, getting bounced again. Pretty neat, though. Like in the middle of, as far out as we are. Yep, there it is. You can see it better. As far out as we are, regular airplanes do fly there, and that's a pretty good length runway. Not for us today. Not for us. All right, going to swing this way. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Not bad. Not bad at all. Should pick an altitude and stick to it, but that mountain right there is 6,000 feet. Like I said, it does not feel like it, but another thing I've learned, optical illusions. We've been going uphill this entire flight. If you recall, when we took off, we were about 600 feet up, and now we're about 5,500 feet up. But if I look out the window there, you realize we're not really that far away from the ground. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you know, it's flat here. It isn't. We're actually going uphill, and it's just that little tiny illusion. When you get to that bottom of that base of that mountain, you look at your altimeter going, oh, I'm about to stall. Our airspeed indicator said. It's just little stuff like that. Things you don't want to have to think about in a flight. Of course, for us, we're pretty low as it is. There's no reason for us to be this low, unless, of course, the weather is like better or worse or something at altitude. I don't know. Waxing poetic here. Waxing poetic. There we go. Very nice. I was going to kind of swing this way. There we go. Success. Let's see how everybody else is doing here. Limes Fly's killing it right there. The Kodiak. Oh, good choice. Desra. Turtle power at 21. Awesome. Everybody's doing great. Swing it this way. Like I said, we're going to have to get up and over that in a second. So a smarter version of me would actually hit the power now and start climbing over it. But I'm not going to do that just yet. Instead, what I'm going to do is just take a look over here real fast. See how we're doing as far as combustibles. Planning, it's still 23 Celsius. So this plane right now, if I were in it, nice. It would be very comfortable on board. Again, another real world thing. You don't get to experience the weather as far as temperature goes. Look at how much fuel I'm burning right now. Oh my God. I love these instruments because they're just boring circles with a little digital display. So you get the best of both worlds with it. Really good stuff. Yeah, glass cockpits are amazing. I think they are. And I would buy an airplane with a glass cockpit any day. But like I said, sometimes the manual stuff, it's just easy. Just kind of, I don't know, just sort of glance and you're on your way kind of a thing. I don't have to interpret. It's just there. All right, let's get a little tiny bit of altitude here. I don't think I'm going to get takeoff power. I think we can get a couple here. One of the fun ones dealing with the Mooney, like I was saying, that I've been flying in the real world, is the fact that you have to deal with the cow flaps, which is something I had to deal with the 182. Nothing new there. But as soon as you go to apply power, cow flaps out power, kind of a thing like that. It's just one of those. It almost becomes like mechanical, like automatic, but then you go to fly something like the Archer, and it's like, oh, I don't even need cow flaps. So it's like, oh, okay. It's kind of one of those things where you like reaching for the handle. Like anybody who's ever driven standard for a long period of time with a car and then switches over to driving automatic, like you're going to be grabbing for that stick and pushing that clutch down, especially when you come up to stop signs all the time. It's just a wow thing. I live at 5,500 feet. Well, AB photos, you're out west. We don't have altitudes like that. We have these things called wires and antennas that chop people down. That's what you run into, not mountains around here. Although north and west of us, we have the Appalachians, which have some height to them, and there have been some very bad accidents over the year, unfortunately, in those mountains. And it's always at night, because at night we wouldn't see anything here. It would just be a couple little lights here and there for people who have electric lights, but those mountains would be pitch black. We just, hello, smack right into them, kind of a thing. JJ says thanks. You're welcome, man. I'm glad people are enjoying it. We hit 26,000, by the way, subscribers, which still blows my mind. Every once in a while, somebody says something like, "Oh, I'll see you when you get to 100,000." And I go and visit channels that have like just about 100,000, and you realize they've been at it twice as long, and they have content anybody watches. Unfortunately, I think the problem is that a lot of stuff I do is too informative. I need to do a worst landings competition or something like that, and just record that. That'll get the folks, but I don't know, it's just not me. Did I mention this mountain was high? Look at this. I told you. That's flight planning right there. I might not be able to clear this. Give me more power. Good thing it's not nighttime. We would have gone right into it. Cumulus granite. Oh, got past. The other thing to remember too is it's very, very hot today. So they have 22 C's. It's delightful. That's a 208. I got passed by a 208. Ah! I want to hit the gas so hard, but I know it's just going to overheat. Oh, I'm like a degree off overheating here. And again, it's a turboprop. It'll deal, but still. There we go. 6,500 feet. I did say that was a pretty tall hill, didn't I? One thing I would like to do more of, but I gotta wait until the weather gets better. I'm gonna do more real world versus the simulator stuff, because I have a GoPro and I can stick it to my head. And now I can actually record audio off the headsets too, so that should be kind of fun. But definitely something I'd like to do more of. It's just, as you know, flying is ferociously expensive. So it's like every time I go somewhere, I have to go somewhere. I can't just fly to fly, so to speak. Not like on the flight sim where I'm like, ooh, I'll go to the middle of Africa. It's, I have a mission, so to speak. Awesome, Toro. I have an ABS, or an APC, basically, and backup power supply. By the way, please buy a backup power supply. I'm not going to tell you who to buy. I'm just going to say, please buy one. One of the things is, like, if I'm in VR and I hear the click of it firing, I'll look down, and it'll say 2.5 minutes, and I'm like, oh my god. But if I'm just sitting in, like, Windows, like an Opera or something like that, it'll be like, oh, you have 45 minutes. So it's like, oh, wow. All right, 6,500 feet. Check this out. Look at all these people who live on this hill here. That is incredible. And this is what they get to see when they wake up in the morning. They can go walk up to the top of this nearby mountain, and you get the valley. This is amazing. I'm going to come swing to my left a little bit here. And like I said, 6,500 feet. Remember, we started at about 700 feet. So it gives you an idea of just how high up we are. It's like the Rockies of Africa kind of thing. Although Africa's got a lot of mountain formations, depending on what part of Africa you're in. It's just, I never think of it like this. All right, one thing I want to do, though, is I see some really neat water up ahead. I would not be myself if I didn't try to skim across the water. So, Jay Baker, I actually have a video of that exact thing, if you want to go hunting a little bit, where I took off and flew an entire flight visually in the real world, and I took off and flew an entire flight in the sim side by side with the same weather settings. So you can actually track that down, but like I said, I want to spend more time. I want to do longer ones and stuff like that when I get the opportunity to do so, especially in the Mooney, because the Mooney is just great. But of course, we have the Mooney Romeo here. We don't have the Mooney Juliet like I do. That's okay, though. The reason I'm losing altitude, by the way, is I see a big, awesome body of water, and I can't resist the urge to fly low over it, especially in this part of the world. It's just, something about it. Of course, you'd have all the birds and things to walk out for, and my entire windscreen would be one giant wall of mosquitoes, but, things happen. I think the release date on that one, Baker, if you're looking for it, would have been, I want to call it September or August of 2022, if you had to get a guesstimate. But it'll say real world flight sim. Like, if you just do a search, you'll see it. Like, you can't miss it. But you can also watch me land and try to embarrass me in the real world. That was in the Archer, too. And that plane is a project. I have a really fun video that my buddy actually took of a Cessna 182 when I was flying in the front seat, and we're coming for a landing on an extremely turbulent day. And it's so satisfying to watch because the auto stabilization on the phone that he was using to record it on makes the horizon still, and the plane is like all over the place. And it's just one of those things where you just watch me flying the plane going, a little left, a little right, little power change, a little left, all right, flaps. It's just kind of one of those things. Oh yeah, you're absolutely right, AB. Absolutely right. Got to clean those tires. Oh yeah, we'll get them right on the water level. All right, we'll come swing down here. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, our destination is actually on the other side of that mountain range over there. But like I said, I cannot resist the urge to fly low over water. It's just one of those things. Of course, when I fly over this part of the world, for those of you who are video gamers, I always think of Far Cry 2. Far Cry 2, I guess, would technically, even though it's in an imaginary country, my brain tells me it would probably be somewhere that way. I don't think it would be over here where we are currently, Cameroon. But it's just one of those things where I always think about those great scenes in Far Cry 2 where you have, like, the old abandoned mines, and you have, like, the dirt roads with, like, the brush and, like, the jungle and the critters that live, and then you have, like, the big lake and everything. I don't know, I just think stuff like that is just so cool. Another reason why I want to come visit here. Ooh, wait a minute. I have a little bit of overhead left. Let me use it. Another thing I learned in the real world I've complained about recently is you got to be careful with the engine. When you descend, you really, really have to plan early. Blood diamond. Ah, yes, exactly. Exactly. And I loved how the Far Cry 2 was basically just an excuse to take a Heart of Darkness by Joe Conrad and just kind of do the Far Cry treatment, I guess is what I want to call it. It's just, I don't know, I liked it. And for the Far Cry games, again, not a big first-person shooter. It's probably my favorite of all time, just because it's the only one that feels like it's happening. The other ones are fantastic games, but it's just like, it's a little, almost not unrealistic, but you know what I mean, kind of a thing like that. And then it has a very kind of ending where it's like, yep, I get that, I deserve that ending. Just a teeny tiny bit of power here. There we are. At this point, I'd be like, turn the air conditioning back on. Look at this. Oh, it's not bad. It's only 30. So hot for me. I think in my room right now, it's like 19 or 20. So this is, it's cozy. It's cozy. A little chilly. I don't mind a little cold, though. A lot of people can't stand a little cold. They need a little warm. Nah, I'm from New England. A little cold works for me. Yep, you're exactly right. Terrain. Don't sink. So I teach an aviation class at my high school, and at the high school I work at. And one of the fun things that we do is I always get the students who are like, why do you always say terrain when I'm coming too close to the ground? Or you say too low, flaps. So then what I do is I go on YouTube every single time and I pull up, there's a great video where it basically goes through all the different, warnings and things like that. And they kind of call it each one. They go through the entire Boeing test and the entire Airbus test. And my students spent the rest of the entire semester basically going too low, flaps, too low, gear, pull up, all the time. And it's just one of those things where they do it to each other. And it's like, I have not helped the world one more time. Don't sink. Now, another cool thing I like about this airplane is this is a New Zealand airplane. And one of these days, I will get to New Zealand. One of these days. All right, always trim up when you're at low altitude. Barking Bob, I love that. I've never actually heard it called Barking Bob. There it is. You can't come to these parts of the world and not cruise. Could you imagine? Oh! Take his tail right off of my 20 mil. But, you imagine the people in the little fishing boats right underneath you, the little birds of prey, a couple fish jumping out and go on the windshield, kind of a thing like that. I don't know, that's just stuff that I always visualize. Always trim up when you're at low altitude. So if you let go, your nose goes up and not down. I'm currently working on the third book in the Steve Kuhn. Oh, there you go. There it is. Nicely done, dude. Nicely done. I'm not going to dare do that with this nice utility airplane. I could probably do it, but not at this altitude. But I was working on the third book in the Steve. Oh, there he goes. Oh, guess not. The third book is talking about, it's called Final Flight, by the way, if anybody's curious about it. some interesting things about operating aircraft at low altitude, and it's one of those, oh god, I never thought of that kind of a thing. So sometimes that could be relevant. Fortunately, the book became a Tom Clancy book kind of towards the end, but that happens. I enjoy the flying. All right, so we got an aircraft. We do. Look at that. We have ourselves a mountain range up ahead, but I'm not going to apply everything we got until we get a little bit closer here. I'm concentrating every bit I got here to not accidentally smack into something, but I love cruising like this over water. Could not do this in the real world. I'd hit a bird. Or that fish would hit our screen, or you know how it usually goes. All right, unfortunately, we got to get back up to 6,000 feet here. 1990. All right, there, perfect. All right, we'll come back up to, I think we can get about 46 or 47. There we go, just building up a little bit of speed. Now we're going to overheat. Come on. Man, this thing is picky. Just the way I like it with aircraft. All right, get ready to climb. What do we got? 152 knots? We're moving. Oh, no, dude, no! You never know how high you are over water. Always remember that. Yeah, those are great, those little red ones in my FSX. I was referring to the nameplates, by the way. Makes it much, much, much easier to see without being so in your face. I'm going to run out of energy here pretty quick. There you go, 120 is about the best I'm going to get out of this thing. We got to get back up to that 6,000 again. Love this region. You just imagine, like, just driving, and like, even imagine being at nighttime where you're just like, you know, sitting there on the edge of that lake and there's no lights for like 100 miles for whatever reason, and it's just the sound, just the quiet of the little water lapping, like the bugs and the animals. Oh my god, that must be incredible. And oh gosh, this plane is it's not a handful. Actually, I like this plane. I think they did a really nice job, especially graphically, and I like the systems on it too. Turtle Power's got the right idea. Up! Up! Oh boy, am I gonna make it. Oh, neat. I never thought about putting a key to that. Fortunately, I'm always the guy up in the front. Oh, there is a mod for nameplates. Oh, I gotta find this now. Good call, JJ. Yeah, if I'm smart, I'll just aim for that little gap between the two. Yeah, I like that right there. Right there. Not too bad. Notice I'm not even climbing. It's just the air is getting a little thin for us. Where the air is rarefied. Come on. Gotta get up to 6,000 to get over that mountain. Maybe we shouldn't have spent so much time at low altitude. That 208's eating me up right now. Ah. Defeated by the 208. Come on. I mean, we're making 1,000 feet a minute from 5,000 feet. We're doing pretty well here. Now, the problem is we gotta go right back down on the other side of the mountain. You'll see what I mean when we get there. Another thing I've been working at recently is aircraft carrier landings. Flight Sim definitely has an aircraft carrier you can land on, and then there's a bunch of mods that kind of make it a little bit easier, kind of a thing like that. But I wish we had a little more flexibility, kind of like we have over in X-Plane. Maybe someday. I'm just getting past here. I think I have like my flaps down or something like that, but I don't. I think we're about clear here. Yeah, good enough. Wow, 5,500. Look at that. Some kid up there trying to throw rocks up at us. Oh, careful, Laffarog. You're a little low. Whoa! Turbulence. Turbulence. Oh! Ew. Ridge lift. Alright, good. All fixed. One of my favorite things is one of my good buddies. I took flying one time. It was the first time he'd ever flown in a small plane. It was an Archer. For those of you who don't know the Archer, the newer Archer, like an Archer 3, they have very, very nice wings that provide unlimited lift, which is not necessarily desirable in turbulence. We are just shy of our destination of Foxtrot Kilo Kilo Mike. Amazing. But I took him for a flight, and he'd never flown with me before. He'd never flown in a small plane. So we take off, and for those of you who learn in the real world, the stall sensor on a real plane is this, for at least that plane, is this little piece of metal that flips up and down and taps if the air hits it just right, which means if you do anything, you will set off the stall warning on it. Like if you think about stalling, it goes kind of a thing like that. So after taking off, of course, whenever you pull it up on a nice hot summer day and you hit turbulence, all you hear is meep, 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 like that. And he's like, what does that mean? I'm like, oh, it means we're about to stall. And of course, to civilians, stall means the engine's going to shut off. So maybe I shouldn't have told him about that, because that scared him to death, especially when you're coming into a landing. It's like, well, at least we're coming down. Yes, that's a Mooney thing. That is definitely a Mooney thing. But I took him for the flight, and the entire flight was bad turbulence. Like, this is not bad turbulence. This is like normal. Nothing new there. But in bad turbulence days, you're everywhere. Like, you don't spend any part of the flight pointing in the direction you intend to travel. You just kind of get there is the best way to describe it in my mind. But this particular flight, the whole flight was bounce, 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 land the plane at my destination, come back, bounce, 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 kind of a thing like that. And he just gets out of the plane afterwards, and he just looks at me like, nope, never again, never again. But I got him to fly again, and it was a much nicer day. I feel sorry for him, though. I dragged him up. We have a mountain near us called Mount Monadnock. It's one of the most climbed mountain on Earth. But it's a great, 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 great climb. And I dragged him up there, and I love hiking. So I'm a very, very, very fast hiker. And unfortunately, I underestimated how much hiking he'd done. So you can imagine how that went. I'm pretty sure I almost lost a friend that day. Alrighty, time to land. All right, so our flight today, this is our terminus. For those of you who'd like to join us for our picture, we're going to be right by the main terminal there. You can see that's the one right there. Looking pretty solid right now. Like I said, pretty easy approach. Nothing too chaotic here. I'm not worried about it. But one thing I do want to look at, let me just see something real fast there. Yep, okay, so the wind is coming from my left. That's what I thought. We're going to set this thing on the ground. One of the things that makes this aircraft cool is it has XSTOL in its name. Extreme Short Takeoff and Landing. I don't agree with the takeoff part, but watch how short of a distance I can stop this plane. I'm not even going to do a standard approach. I'm going to land at the tarmac. This is so excessive. So excessive. All right, let's come around, make sure everything's good to go. Y'all going to take the runway. Pfft, lightweights. Watch this. Watched a lovely video of somebody actually flying this in the real world to get a little understanding of how kind of some of the systems work on it. And I, to say that I was impressed by how ridiculously sketchy their approaches were is putting it lightly there. All right, that's about 65. Remember, we're at turboprops, so we get very slow. That's about 60. That's pretty good right there. Don't worry, I'll be able to stop it in time. There we go. Just let the plane do its thing. And if you start sinking, don't pull back, just apply power. That's another thing I've learned to death of in the real world versus the sim. Alright, no whammies. I'm going to try to hit the edge of the tarmac there. Nah, it's not going to happen. I'm a little fast. Isn't that great? I did come in slightly fast. That is awesome. Who needs runways? Love that. All right, if you'd like to come join us for our picture, I'll be getting the nice little, lovely little mountains over there. Swing us around. As always, when we reach the end of these, I always like to do some QA. If anybody has any questions or comments, maybe some videos you'd like to see made in the future, just let me know. This is a great time to do so as everybody's making their way nice and safely over to where I'm kind of parked right here. I always get this backwards. There we go. Gotta love that. Gotta love that. Whoa! Hey, that's a fill landing right there. Woo! Isn't that ridiculous? Like, airplanes like that should not exist. Like, that's incredible. And I've seen people do stuff like that on grass with this thing. It's just like, what? I think you need, what, 500 feet? Something like that? Like 150, 200 meters. All right, if you'd like to join us on our picture, I'm getting everything all kind of squared away here. That is a lot of turboprops today. Nice. It's great to see an amazing turnout today. Unfortunately, like I said, we haven't been able to do this in a long time. So our turn. Oh, he's falling out of the picture. That is just so awesome. I can't get you. You've gone away. And right there. Awesome. Picture taken. Uh-oh, we got another one coming. These pictures, by the way, are just the title cards to these live streams, in case anybody was curious. And right there. Okay, got it. All right, nice. Oh, I wonder why. Yeah, someday. Someday. You got to have the model to make it work. All right, let's go find something wet that I can crash into here. Whee! Interesting. There we go. All fixed. All right, going up. All right, let's go ahead and turn things on. What financial advice would you give to someone who wants to be the PPL? All right, Jay Baker, that's a fantastic question. I can definitely answer that one. Give me just half a second to turn damage on so I can find something to smack into here. All right, so as far as QA goes, the first thing is when you're doing flight training, one of the most lethal things to flight training is how long it takes you to get the flight training done. One of the mistakes I found really early on is if you don't really kind of put all your effort into the flight training in time, you're going to find out that you spread it out, which is going to make it progressively more expensive for you. One of the big surprising expenses for me, believe it or not, were things like getting your flight physical, getting certified for the actual, having to pay somebody to come see you, the DPE. That's tremendously expensive to take your test. And unfortunately, like I said, it can be, especially if you have to retake it. You're talking over $1,000 US, so you have to be ready for that expense. Flying the actual aircraft, you have to be ready for situations where you can't operate the plane because there's problems with downtime. So again, the more time you can put into it in the shorter period, the more money you'll save in that regard. Yep, absolutely, Toro. Great kind of a thing. It's not cheaper than I thought. It's more expensive than I thought. One of the things is like when I go flying now, I have to have a mission. I got to go somewhere. I can't just get in the plane and go, because if I do something like that, I'm basically burning money. Fuel right now is the absolute most expensive part of my flight. I can fly the Mooney for $50 an hour, but then my fuel is $120 an hour. So it's one of those situations, you put the two together, you end up 130, 140, 150. It's just so expensive. And the other thing is, it takes you time to get in the air. So like after you go ahead and like get the whole airplane all ready to go, start the engine, you look at that Hobbs time and you've already burnt a quarter of an hour, or even more than quarter of an hour, even getting to the runway. So like when you're sitting there planning out your flight, say, oh, it's only going to take me 35 minutes to get there. It's going to be about an hour worth of being in the seat with the engine running time to get to that 35 miles away kind of a situation. That's always been a consistent surprise to me how expensive it is. Then you have landing fees, which are always, some places can be expensive. Sometimes you have FBO fees, like another one that's a real big surprise right there. If you travel to other countries, they hose you for customs fees. Those are all things that you just weren't quite experienced. So yeah, those are kind of the big ones. It's not cheaper than I thought. It's way worse. It's probably 30 or 40% more expensive than I expected it to be. All right, do you use your mouse to adjust the camera? The answer is sometimes. The problem with the camera adjust, if you hold right click and adjust your head, you can also get the scroll wheel, which is super handy. But for me, I have to let go of the control to do that. And also when you hold right, see how I'm moving my controls, but it's not moving. I let go of the mouse. Do you see how it's starting to move again? That makes it tricky. But again, I have a button on my joystick for it again. Figure 20,000 for PPL. That's too high. I paid, by the end of when the dust had settled, not including my DPE, it probably cost me about 10,500. So that's definitely about the range you can expect. Better VNAV APR. Okay, JJ, I'll put something together for that. I can't do that now. 20,000, that's high. Instruments, by the way, going to take you just as much money as it costs you for your private, in case anybody's curious. Good to have back. Great to see you, AB. All right. Wonderful, everybody. So yeah, that should be good. All right, let me go crash into the water before I end up taking all evening doing donuts without even realizing what I'm doing here. Let's see what we got here. There's got to be something wet I can crash into. Oh, I see it. But as always, thank you for joining us. Like I said, it's good to be back. You have no idea how insane my life has been over the last several weekends there. And one of the cool things is one of my buddies has gotten accepted for an airline job kind of a thing, doing some kind of charter stuff. So he's going to have all sorts of gory stories for us, I'm sure, pretty soon. That looks pretty good right there. Oh, yeah, there it is. Can I put the plane in reverse in the air? Does that work? Nope. Aw. All right, here we go. Oh, boy. Easy. Ah! I love it. Whee! All right, folks, have a wonderful day, evening. It could be a wonderful morning, wonderful lunch. Other than that, we'll see you again soon.